Only the names have been changed.
So Trump walked away from the deal in Vietnam. The summit was a big failure. And the narrative to come out of this is so fascinating. I'll tell you why. The phrase that you're just going to hear over and over and over again is legitimizing North Korea. So the argument goes, Trump's the big loser, Kim's the big winner. Now why? Trump didn't give up any sanctions, didn't cancel any war games. It seems like a draw, something of a stalemate, but no. Trump, by meeting with Kim, taking photos with him, God forbid shaking his hand, this is going to be used as propaganda by the North Korean regime, and in a way it legitimizes the regime's existence. Now this meme, this shibboleth, this buzzword, whatever you want to call it, this concept of legitimizing the North Korean regime, it's fascinating. First of all, you have to understand it's fake. Nobody really believes this, meaning no one who has any real power, no one who studies international relations and understands how people within a state act or how states act with each other believes that this is going to have any effect on the North Korean people and how likely they are to rise up and overthrow the regime. As if all the propaganda that they've been subjected to decade after decade after decade hasn't really stuck, and they're kind of on the fence about the regime, kind of thinking about rising up and overthrowing it, but then they see this photo of Kim and Trump together, they think, oh, I guess we were wrong, he really is the God Emperor, and we really should just bow our heads and never revolt. And no one believes that a country like India or Pakistan were going to abide by sanctions against North Korea and not trade with them, but then see Kim and Don shake hands and say, I guess if the shining city on a hill thinks Kim Jong-un is a good guy, I guess we're free to trade with them and violate sanctions. No, states are gonna obey or disobey sanctions based on their economic interest and whether they think they can get away with it. It has nothing to do with this absurd concept of legitimizing the regime. Now, so it's a fake concept, and it's also a concept that has now migrated right across the political spectrum. Now understand, this concept started on the far right with the hawks and the hardliners. Now it's migrated over to the left. Now, having the same concepts on both the left and the right, this isn't new. What's new is, I guess, the lack of disguise. So there's always been phrases and concepts that are the same. Special snowflake on the right, white tears on the left. At the very least, they had different names. So anyone who could see the essence of it would understand it's the same. But I guess if all you do is look at appearances, you could be fooled at seeing the different appearances for the two concepts. What's interesting now is it's the same name. And there's no need to even dress it up to seem like they're two different concepts. Part of this is probably political polarization, so people are so much in their own bubbles, they're never really exposed to actual arguments from the other side. So when they receive an argument from the thought leaders and just spew it out, they might not know that it was even used on the other side. And memories and attention spans are probably so short. In 4 years with a new president, people aren't going to remember that all the same arguments were used on the other side, just the two sides were flipped. So this discourse we find ourselves in, where there's these ideas, these concepts that just float around disembodied, they're not rooted to any particular ideology or position. They can be picked up by anybody, anywhere on the political spectrum and used, and they're also not tethered to any actual beliefs in the world of people with power who actually make decisions. Nobody is talking about legitimizing the North Korean regime. They're talking about things like miles and distances and money and pipelines and concrete things like that. No one is talking about this, again, silly concept that was created for the masses. It wasn't created for the elite. And it reminds me so much, there's this idea of copy without an original, and this idea of when a simulation becomes more powerful than the reality, even though it never actually was tethered to the reality at all. This idea of something like pornography, where it's not actually supposed to simulate real sex. It's this completely abstract, hyper stylized version, but it can become so omnipresent that it actually becomes even more real than the reality itself. And just the discourse now of just these concepts that, again, these untethered concepts just swirling around, untethered from anything, and just grabbing these concepts and hurling them around, and again, never grabbing it and just actually thinking about it for like 10 seconds. Okay, legitimizing the North Korean regime. Legitimizing to who? The North Korean people, other states, Western liberal democracies like Canada. Is Canada now going to be more likely to be soft on the North Korean regime? American citizens? Are now American citizens going to be more dovish and less hawkish towards North Korea? Again, as soon as you grab it and just start to think about it, it collapses. So it's these, again, highly stylized, easily shared, SEO friendly, idioms and sound bites that there's nothing there. You can't even argue against it because it's not even clear what the argument is. I can't formulate an argument because I don't even know what the position of the other side is. And people talk about late capitalism. This is political discourse in late capitalism where there's no actual debate. So back when there's monarchists, and then whoever was on the other side, the liberals, the reformers, there's actual disagreement. One side believed in aristocracy and divine right of kings. The other side believed in equality between all people. There was an actual debate to be had. Now there's no real debate. It's just people running around throwing these concepts at each other that they don't really understand where they came from. They've never really sat down and thought about these concepts for a minute even. So it's kind of maddening. That's enough to drive you crazy. So that's my take on the whole North Korean thing. And bone spurs, remember that? Let's do it. Finish with the joke.